Hey folks, no crows this week, but I do have a special treat. My good friend, Eric Fischer, joined me for a wide-ranging conversation on Fireside with. Enjoy. Hello everyone, I'm Caleb Sunstead, and normally the marshal of Sounds Like Crows, but instead today I'm doing Fireside with Eric Fischer. Eric, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Caleb.
Great, man. We're drinking whiskey.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good day. You're in my Blades in the Dark game.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun so
it's
far,
so
right?
much fun.
I know you're on air, so it's hard to be honest, but, I think it's pretty good.
It's such a fun game. Like, I didn't know if I was going to like it as much as I did.
I didn't either.
Because, like, I've played other games that's sort of like that, and, like, they go in with, like, the promise of, like, this is going to be a lot more cinematic than your usual game. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And, like, for the most part, I like them. What's the one I was playing? You play, like, story aspects in the world. City of Mist. Have you ever played City of Mist?
No, I don't even know anything about
it. Like, it's really cool in the console. Like, it's sort of like a noir mystery game.
Okay.
And, like, when you create characters, like, you create story ideas personified. My favorite character I ever made for that was this, like, tall man, beard. He loved doing good deeds, and legendary things would happen around him, and he had an axe. He was based off Paul Bunyan, right? So, like,
okay, yeah.
You can go even more abstract. The game is like, you should be like Paul Bunyan or Pippi Longstocking or, like,
Abraham Lincoln, the
big bad wolf. Yeah. But, like, you can really go, like, I played a game with a couple people. One of them was, like, the concept of this TV show they really liked. Like, it's Canadian. That was Renee, actually.
Okay. Bad call, Renee.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting. One character was basically just RuPaul from RuPaul's Drag Race. And, like, so you can really, like, stretch it. It's really interesting.
Was it good?
It is interesting. It has a lot of good aspects.
Be good, Eric.
No, I know. Like, I had fun while I played it, but, like, will I go back and play more?
Yeah.
Probably not. Sorry, City of Mist people. I know you're listening.
Yeah. Many people. Yeah, you and me have probably both played a lot of, like, indie weird RPGs, right?
Oh, definitely.
Have you played Dread yet?
No.
Okay, one day. Right. I promised I would play Host
That's
Dread
right.
for you, and I didn't.
Yeah.
But Blades in the Dark is pretty interesting. It forces me to, like, not be in character all the time and, like, just talk at you with NPCs, which is really hard for me to do. So yeah, I'm learning and
it also really forces you as a player, which is really weird, to just not plan things out. That's probably where, like, the most problems arise, but also it's my favorite part of everything, because, like,
right, because people really want to. It doesn't matter, even if we're all there not to do that, we end up trying to do it anyway.
I mean, like, it's just your natural inclination, and no matter how into the game you are when you're playing a role-playing game, you're like, you know subconsciously, oh, I'm sitting at a table with all my friends, so, like, there's a problem before us. Let's just figure out the smartest way to do this.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help that the game is, like, punishing. It doesn't help that the game is like, oh yeah, you're going to get fucked over because of the decisions you're making right now. One thing I'm not sure I like about it, and you mentioned maybe you don't like it as a player, is that your character can just get knocked out for a session or knocked out for 2 sessions, where effectively you have to go do something that calms your character down just so you can keep playing the game, you know?
In the moment, I don't like it, but also, like, I think
it's cool as a GM.
Well, and also, like, it is cool as a player as soon as you make your next character. I really want to start a game where every person makes 2 characters, so they're ready to jump and start a new person.
That's a good idea.
The game has a really awesome leveling mechanic I really like, of both for your own personal character and then also your crew, your little criminal crew you make, leveling that up. It's all very fun. And it's all really interesting. You can set short-term goals and long-term goals and visualize the whole arc. It's really cool. I will say the one thing, this game really, really suffers if you do not play at least once a week.
That's fair.
The level up mechanics, the gameplay just sort of loop. It only really works if you're just on that grind. Because if you're like a group that only gets together once a month and this is your game that you play,
I didn't even think about that.
It's gonna seem infuriating, because you're just like, you're like, oh man, these are these goals I want to make, and then all of a sudden, like, you reach the end of a session and you just get, like, a tiny step closer to those goals, and you're just sort of like, time to wait another month.
Yeah, that's difficult for sure. On the flip side, this is the only game I've run in a long time with literally 0 prep work. I will force myself not to think about it before we play. For the most part, it works out. You know, there's definitely little stumbling blocks and shit, but man, it's a fun system.
It really is. Once you get past those mental roadblocks, it's great. This last session we were playing, this last week, we go and we do our downtime, we do our planning, we do the mission setup, and we're getting into the mission. And all of a sudden there was just sort of this lull. As people were like, should we just start in the middle? Should we? Because, like, that's what it, and then I was just like, bam, bam, I slap the table and I'm like, I'm not in the mansion we're infiltrating. I'm blocks away, ready to cut the power to the entire city block.
That was cool.
And like, Dan was just like, man, you got to think of the ramifications. And I didn't want to like argue with him, but I was like, in this type of game, like, this is the thing that needs to happen. The action needs to occur.
Well, Dane, if you're listening, sorry, pal. Yeah, in that situation, it's like you're always going to have one player that is there for the most efficient route through possible. Yeah. That's like a super common type of player. Those are the types of people that really love Pathfinder and really love super mechanical stuff.
Dane hates Pathfinder.
What is Dane into?
He really likes games where his agency is rewarded.
Right.
He likes it when he's able to think stuff out and then execute it to a degree of entertainment. So like he really does like Cypher. I love running Cypher with him because he's such an interesting character. I played an entire 79 session campaign with him in Cypher system, my favorite system.
That is so fucking long. And did you play that every week?
About. Wow. I sort of run things really casual. I try to structure everything like a TV show. I'm going to run every week unless I'm missing. If you can't make it, you can't make it. I'm just going to like play around you. Like your character's there in quotes, but like I encourage none of the players, don't ask where this character is. Don't be like, hey, can this character do this thing? You'll go through a TV show like you're watching Scrubs, right? There's like hundreds of episodes. And all of a sudden you're just like, wait a minute. Was Turk even in that last episode? And he wasn't. He didn't have a storyline. He just wasn't there. Like maybe they mentioned him. They're like, oh yeah, Turk's my best friend. I'm like, oh yeah, everyone knows that. This doesn't work for everyone, right? But like this, as a GM, I just work really well if I'm just sort of like, sometimes there's an episode without a character.
I mean, if you're running a weekly game, that's the shit you got to do.
Oh, but like Cypher system.
Yes, we should talk about Cypher for sure.
Dane is such a cool character in it. And like one of the reasons he likes it, I know it's not his favorite, but like it's one of the reasons why I love Cypher so much. 79 sessions. He was at pretty much every one.
Yeah.
He almost never failed a check.
Whoa.
99.9% of the time he never failed.
And that's
because that's how Cypher works. If you're careful or over careful, if you're listening to verbal cues, you can tell how hard something's going to be, and you can just take damage yourself to put effort into something. If your effort ever exceeds the DC of the check, basically, auto success. So like he never wanted to roll. But it would be interesting because I'd get through a huge fight or a huge situation that was very deadly, very dangerous. And like he succeeded. He never got hit by a bad guy. He landed every punch. He did everything. And like as a DM, at first, I'd always be devastated. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible DM. He just got through that so easy. Luckily, Dane, I think, noticed. And so he would like remind me at the end verbally, like, oh man, we can't do another fight. And then I realized he may have succeeded, but because of the way Cypher works, by pushing yourself and taking speed damage so that you can dodge an attack, or taking physical damage so you can put that extra damage into a punch, or taking mental damage to make sure you resist mental takeover, he would succeed all the time. But every time we do a big fight, he'd always come out with no health left. Washed.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So like it's still really satisfying. Like he succeeded every turn, but it wasn't without both punishment and it also wasn't without difficulty. If anything had happened during that, he would have died. And like that's really cool.
Well, I suppose if you're going to design a game where, now I'm not sure that was their intent, but if you're going to design a game where you want your players to get through it, being able to succeed the whole time, and you can make that experience feel super difficult for them. And that's the dream, right? Is like just on the edge. You want the Millennium Falcon to land fucking broken on the planet they arrived at. Yep. That's really cool. It's got like 3 different resource pools of stuff you
basically
have to...
your stats and your health are the one and the same, right? You have 3 stats. You have body, speed, and int, or it might be called mind. The GM doesn't make any rolls ever. Okay. The GM just basically sets DCs at a difficulty rating of 1 to 10, and as how that corresponds to a D20 is 1 difficulty is every 3 numbers. So that means rolling a D20 for 7 through 10 is impossible without effort.
Why are 1 through 7 impossible?
If everyone is multiplied by 3, 7 is 21 on a D20.
Oh.
8 is 24.
Okay.
It's really cool then because like a player will ask me, oh, I'm going to punch that guard in the face. And I'm like, you look at the guard, his armor shines and you can tell the thickness of the steel. It's very well made. You look at your tiny dagger, you know this will be a very hard strike.
Okay,
or
that's
like,
cool.
Or if I know they don't have the skill, because skills add to your die roll and so does effort. So you hurt yourself damage to +3 to your die roll. If I know they don't have the skill, or if they're not even thinking about putting effort in it, if it's above 21, right, as a GM, I don't want to say your challenge rating is 7. Like, I'll just be like, I know they don't have any skill in like swords, so I'll just be like, you know that this is nearly impossible.
Dude,
and they're
that's
like,
interesting.
is that a 7 at 21 or is that a 6 at 18? And or like if it's around a 12 to a 6 range, I'll be like, this is a very hard check.
That's interesting because it forces you as a GM to do that, right?
Yep.
Because something I do very often is I'm like, okay, their AC is 21. You know what I mean? I
Yep.
do that shit all the time. And that would literally be impossible in this
Yep.
system. Wow. That's super fascinating, actually.
It's a lot of fun. And then because I don't roll anything ever and it's all just DC setting, that's the mindset you get into. You get this really awesome dialogue with your party just by being able to say things like, jumping over this canyon may be easy. And you're like, may be easy? Oh, no.
So you ran 69 sessions in that.
79.
Did you run any before or after that? Or was that your whole run of it?
I did like a couple before and one during. To sort of prep myself to like teach myself how to run Cypher, I did what was supposed to be a one shot, but I'm really bad at one shots.
Yeah.
I just get so into the story.
What do you mean? How are you bad at one shots? They're like, you can build the whole story in one little one shot. You can set it up however you want. The consequences don't matter.
Well, my one shots are really fun, but they're just not one shots. That's why I'm bad at them.
Oh, okay.
I get way too into the story. I'll just be like, okay, so this combat should take about this many hours. This setup should be about this. I just get like way too into characters. I improvise all the time, even when I do a ton of setup. I was like, cool, 6-hour session for this one shot. And all of a sudden I'll be like 3 hours in and they're still in the opening spot because they just found like this one homeless person
who's
difficult. Like, I'm selling glitter bugs. And like the players are always like, glitter bugs? That sounds awesome.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest benefits to running Crows is that I have this red number right here that tells me how many minutes or hours I'm into recording.
Oh, perfect.
And once it hits, I've been tempted multiple times to get one of those big Wall Streetian red clocks. Put on the wall, hit start when you start a session because it's such a big deal, man. Yeah, if you're in a one shot, you're just fucked if you're 2 hours in and it's not gone anywhere. You just got to change the end. That's it.
I have it actually pretty good now that we've been playing online, right? Because of COVID.
Oh, yeah, because you get a timer right there.
Yeah, well, I got my clock. So I'm jumping between, I'm changing the song for the music. I'm looking at all the graphs. And then I can always, as I'm moving around, I can just like computer clock. And I'm like, cool, I have this much time left.
That's like the hardest part of GMing, isn't it? Just pacing?
Yes. I've been GMing for years now, and I would like to think that I'm pretty good at it. Every once in a while, you can just be like, man, I haven't had a poorly paced game in years. And then
you get fucked.
And then you just have like a week, and like maybe it's you, maybe it's not. It's just something happens.
I think that's the terrifying thing about GMing is it's not a skill that you can gain total proficiency in. It's so dependent on the players and the day you're having, the day they're having. Fuck, man, it's a bad time. Do you remember your first really bad session? Is there one that haunts you from your early days? When did you start GMing? Not to get into like
no, you're good.
A dick measuring contest, Stuart, but
I started GMing around 2009.
Okay.
Oh no, it was a little before then, so probably like 2008. And I GM'd a lot, and that was in high school. I finally got a group of friends that played D&D again.
Okay.
I started playing D&D when I was really little, middle school.
Yeah.
I had a couple high school friends that played, and they were so nice.
That's
we were in the
cool.
same Boy Scout troop. I was really nerdy, but I was really bad at math, which is funny because I'm at school to be a math teacher right now. And so basically, I was very creative. I had this huge imagination. So I'd just go and I'd be like, I don't understand anything. They're like, that's okay, Eric. Just tell me everything you want. And then like, we'll tell you what dice to roll.
That's
and like,
cool, man.
They made my character sheet for me. I was Frank the half-elf wizard.
Wonderful.
And then I moved from Minnesota to Colorado and I didn't have that. But then all of a sudden I noticed a bunch of friends. They're like, yeah, D&D. I'm like, that's a game I haven't played in a long time. So I started DMing again.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. I was able to actually do a really big, long, epic, well, not long, it's probably like, 20 sessions.
Yeah.
3.5 game. It was a lot of fun. There was a couple things that I did really, really poorly. One is I just had a very overly ambitious friend, like that min-maxer friend that was like, he wants to just dominate the game. And I did not stop him at all, to the point of like, I had like created an entire world, a literal globe. You could go anywhere. And he was just like, no, I don't want to hang out with the party. I'm going to go and like sail to a different continent. So not only was it was splitting a party on an epic level. And I just didn't say no, which like, I think being able to just say no kindly, but just be like, no, these are the barriers of the game.
Right. These are the barriers of the game.
Yeah.
You need to be able to tell people, hey, here's why this is a bad decision for the story. You can, I mean, we can do that if you want, but you're going to get online with me on an email chain later. You know what I mean?
Luckily, I've just found such an awesome group of gaming friends lately that we're always on such a great page. The way I always go into it was when I'm starting a campaign, I'm like, this is the vibe I want for this game. Usually because it's me, I'm like, this is like a TV show. You are a main cast of characters and everything's going to be sort of going around you. For my last one, Exodus, the 79 session one, I was like, you can make your character however you want, right? It's character creation. But somewhere in the psyche of your character is a disdain of sitting still and a lust for adventure.
That's beautiful.
You can have that portrayed any way you want, but you need to not want to stay in the same spot ever. And you want to explore. You always want to be just like jonesing and moving. It was perfect. For the first time, all the characters, super different, super diverse, but like I never had a problem of people being like, I don't want to be with the party. I'm just going to go off and do my own thing.
I feel like a lot of that too is as I get older, I just choose the people I play with because like all forms of play are fun and valid, but maybe not for me. You know what I mean? So you said 2008 is what you said? When you started GMing, how did you acquire the information to be a good GM? Because for me, I just consumed a bunch of shit online, but I think you, like me, are also disconnected from, well, until I started this fucking show, disconnected from the RPG online community, right? Like you just played RPGs with your friends.
Yeah. One of the things that like really helped me, I like look back at my early days and I'm like, oh, yikes.
Yeah, so say we all.
Was that like, I had not only such a big group of friends that wanted to play D&D, but wanted to GM. I was in so many games.
Whoa, that's super cool. That's rare.
And then I also had 2 friends that not only GM'd, but made their own systems.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's ambitious, guys.
Yeah. One of them has actually already published his book. It's Eternity by Jake Tegman. It's a really fun combat game. I was there from like its very beginning. There were great days. In fact, like one of my favorite campaigns I ever played was in Eternity. It was the 2nd edition. Him GMing and then Dane, me, and 2 other of my friends. He would be like changing the game rules as we played because he's making the game as we go.
That's what you do.
It was some of the best sessions I ever had and some of the worst. But because of that, I'm able to be like, well, why was it the worst? Why did that work? When I GM'd, I was able to sort of suss out what I wanted to do.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people aren't introspective in that way. Like, did you purposely do that? Or when you got to GMing, did you just decide like, oh, okay, that's the shit that didn't work back then? Were you analyzing as you went?
When I GM, I'll talk a lot about it afterwards, as Dane will attest, both being my best friend and also the person I've lived with for so much of the last 10 years. whenever I GM a game, I'll just rant at him and he'll just be like, yeah, okay. And sometimes give nice feedback, but for the most part, just be a really nice ear to listen to.
Yeah.
I am very spur of the moment. I'm able to internalize a lot of things about like what's good and bad of what I've experienced and then put that into my work. But then mostly for how I've improved as a GM, it's 2 things. One, it is like my friendship with Dane, but also my friendship with others. But like Dane's the one I talk to the most because he was in that campaign with me. He's in most of the campaigns I do.
Yeah.
After any session, we'll always just sort of talk about it. At first, they'll just be like, oh my gosh, I am so mad at Jake right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this was so dumb. And then as we rant, the ranting, just because of who Dane and I are, turns into like, oh, well, why didn't it work? Half just because of who we are, half also because to make things change, because the game was always changing, we needed to be able to go like, hey, Jake, you busted. And then like, but the problem with Jake, that was said really mean. One of the problems with Jake at the time in terms of making the game, he took a lot of it really personally. So if we came and we didn't have good feedback, which is the case with a lot of people, right? If you don't have good feedback, of course they're not going to take it well.
That's so strange though, because I took this one class at my work, an 8-hour mandatory class for all the managers in the company.
Yeah.
And, as with all those classes, you're like, this is going to be whatever. But it genuinely changed the way that I thought about feedback. And it's still really difficult to always take negative feedback correctly.
Yeah.
But like, if someone is at the point where they're giving you negative feedback, generally that means that you should change some behavior. Like they've already thought about that shit for a long time. They probably didn't tell you a bunch of the little stuff that bothered them. If someone's giving you some shit, that's a big deal, man.
The majority of criticism you're going to get as a GM, of course, there's going to be exceptions to the rule, but the majority isn't going to be personal. It's going to feel personal, and that's the hump that you need to get over. Doubly for people like Jake, because he was making the game, right? So he's like, this is my baby.
Right.
And I'm like, this sucked. And he's just be like, you suck. No. There was this one time, there was a boss, and the game is very focused on combat, so it's like on a grid. The boss literally minefielded the place with invisible mines that when you failed his equivalent of a constitution check, instant death.
Jesus
And they were
Christ.
invisible. And I was like trying to be like, I throw dust over the field. Show me where these things are. And he'd be like, that doesn't work. There was no spell that worked. There was nothing that worked. It was just, if you move,
Right.
all right, I'm going to move up to punch him. Move. Constitution roll.
Fuck,
You're dead.
man. Well, he wanted that to happen. That's the problem. You can't get into a stage where you're so married to your ideas. That's a real problem.
The other worst thing that ever happened to me when I was jamming forever haunts me. I'm always so careful about how I name things now. It was the end of my first big campaign back in 2008. I think we were ending it in 2009.
Yeah.
And I was so happy. I was like, I'm finally bringing an end to the story. It's so cool. The penultimate session. The big thing that was revealed, because for the entire game, they knew the whole globe. They knew every continent, but they didn't know where this final thing was happening. Hidden in the creases of the map, revealed to them at the very end, a hidden island where the final battle was going to take place. And I revealed the name to them, and I'm like, whispered on the winds of time, the name Corlana. And everyone's like, oh. As everyone's talking about how they're going to get to this mysterious island, what the next steps are, one of the characters, one of the players, is just over there scratching his head, looking at what I wrote down, Corlana. He's like looking, and he goes, anal rock. And I'm like, fucking what? I was in high school, so like my puzzles had never been the best. So a lot of my puzzles for like dungeons they had gone through were read it upside down or read it backwards.
Sure.
So he had read Corlana backwards, and it was anal rock. And now forever through the annals of
They
time.
called it Anal Rock.
Yes. The final battle of my first grant is like, they're like, oh yeah, the Battle of Anal Rock. And I'm like,
Well, yeah, nothing you can do there, buddy. That's just a bad time.
just takes the wind right out of your sails.
Yeah. That's not really you fucking up as a GM, though. That's just...
It kind of is, though. You got to be ready for anything, especially when you're going to put a lot of gravitas on something. You got to really make sure that you're like, if I want this to be serious,
Yeah.
you got to scan that place for anal rocks because they could be anywhere. I mean, like, most players I've played with are wont to just be silly, especially when you bring seriousness to something. It's just fun to bring levity, especially in the face of seriousness. And that's fine. It doesn't affect me as long as it's not my fault. And I put anal rock there. That's on me.
That's something that's hard about Dread is doing a horror game. You don't realize that people just do that always. They're always trying to bring, even if you're like, okay, this is like a horror game. It's meant to be kind of, they don't give a shit. You know, they'll say anal beads whenever humanly possible. You know, it just occurs. Goddamn. One day I would like to play in a game that you host. That would be super fun.
I mean, like, I don't know if we can announce this yet, but I mean, we started talking about me running that one shot for you guys, the Numenera one.
Absolutely. Yeah. None of my players know about that. But,
Well, do they listen to their own show?
at least half of them do.
Well, surprise.
Yeah, we're going to play Cypher. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to try and do Numenera because I love Numenera. I mean, it's just Cypher, but with the Numenera world.
Did you make your own system when you played Cypher?
No, Cypher.
Setting.
Yes.
You did.
I didn't actually know I wanted to do Cypher. I knew I wanted to do a general system for something because I wanted to make my own setting. I just finished Star Wars, that's right. I had done a short, like, 15-session campaign of Shadowrun, and that was awesome, even though I don't really...
Okay, hold on. Fuck Cypher for a second. Is Shadowrun a good system? Because, god damn it, it seems fucking impenetrable, and I've run it a couple times, and I've played it a couple times, and it just seems like too much for the indie-minded me.
It's really fun. I really like Shadowrun, and it's funny I say that, because I'm sure if, like, someone who actually loved playing Shadowrun and I GM'd a game, they would hate me because like I don't fully get it.
Yeah,
because you're right, like there's just so many rules to the game, and like I get the gist of it, so for a lot of it I'm just sort of like, yeah, I'm gonna do enough research that I need to, and then all of a sudden they go into a part of the internet or cybersphere or whatever it's called, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm like, do this check and this happens. Woohoo!
Yeah, I never got how to make that work in general. Like having somebody play the cyberspace while everybody else is playing in space.
Cyberspace I'm really bad at. And then like I'd gotten these PDFs of these extra these expansions, and I'm like, oh hey guys, you can use any of the rules in here because I've been reading through them and they're really cool. But I didn't read all of them. And one of the players was like, I go and I change my character, change races, and I'm like, what? And it was like, yeah, I go off to like this place, and like it all made sense in the lore. And he turned himself into a living AI.
Oh no!
So he didn't exist in the real world anymore. And I'm like, oh no. I handled this character so poorly. So, like, thankfully, he's just the nicest guy. His name's Paul, and like he took it on the chin when like he'd want to do something, and I'd just be like, sure, and I just sort of abstractly handle it through like a series of checks. Because that's all games are, is a series of checks.
Yeah, for sure. Fuck it.
No, but like it's a lot of fun. It is it's very hard to like grasp all of it, but like the lore is just so solid, and like it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And like I do actually, I really like how the system works, and I like how a lot of both items and rules for both magic and like physical things function with the idea of rolling the dice, rolling just a wad of d6s to get those 5s and 6s.
You're right about the equipment being exhaustive in the amount of options you have, and like if I could run that game with absolute proficiency, it would probably be super fun. But
it's also like I have a lot more fun playing that game as a player. I made one of my favorite, and I don't think you can do it in the most like current version of the game. I started before the most current version, and like I don't know the version numbers, but like I remember when I first played the game, one of the characters I made, I loved him so much. Our GM at the time was just sort of like she was just like, hey, we're gonna make super powerful characters, so like just gave us a ton of XP and money at the start, and I'm like, okay. And like I made this dude, he was super agile, super awesome. I made these gloves that had these patches on them so that like when they touched you, they gave you so much, as long as I touched skin, they gave you so much non-lethal damage. I could pass a Cyclops out. I was terrible against like robots and other things, but like if you had flesh and blood, I'm like, you're going nighty-night. And it was so much fun.
There's something about having really complex rules, and when it pays off and your character does exactly what you want, that's super fucking cool. The last Shadowrun campaign I was in, it ended with another player chaining me to like a old car in a junkyard and going, stay here and never talk to me again. If I see you again, I'm gonna kill you. And then I escaped, got on my motorcycle, went to his house, and we described this cinematic shot of me like going up the stairs to his house, knocking the door, and he just opens it up, and then we just see a pistol come out into the hallway. And then we spent 5 minutes going, okay, so armor piercing and what kind of armor, okay, and hit points. And then he rolls all these dice, and then it's like, well, you die in one shot because it's point blank, there's blah, blah. And it's really satisfying that the system could do that. There's something I like about systems that are stressful, systems that are like you might die at any moment, and apparently that's not a thing that a lot of like indie RPG players are super into. You know, there's the very modern RPG design concept of like death is consensual, you know, or in the Orpheus Protocol, which is like a bastardization of fate, one of the mechanics they have, which I think is cool, is once you die mechanically, if you're not okay with your character dying, then you like continue onwards until a point where they just die, and then you describe that narratively. That's pretty interesting to me, but the concept of like always staying alive kind of defeats some of the immersion.
Oh,
maybe.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm playing it right now, Genesis. That's actually one of my favorite parts of those games, is how they handle death. It's all based on a series of critical injuries that you're going to accrue. Critical injuries can happen either from just like an enemy critting you, or if you ever dropped, and like this is like one of my things that I always didn't like with death is just like in a fight, when you ran out of HP, all of a sudden either you're dead or you're very close to dead. And like I just didn't like that, because like I feel like it then takes away the idea of HP being a resource that I'm spending, and instead of just being a ticking timer, it's like, do I have enough HP to like beat this bad guy? Oh no, I don't. Okay, I'm dead. Or like in games that are very like luck based, like D&D, all of a sudden like one crit on me, and I'm like, cool, whatever. Yeah, I guess that's done. But like one of the ways you get crits in Genesis is you get dropped to 0, or max wounds, as they put it, and all of a sudden you're out, but you're not like dead, you just get another crit. Every crit you get, so whenever you get a crit, you roll a D100 and then you add 10 for every crit you already have. And then you die on a roll of 140 and up. So you can only die if either you already have 4 critical injuries, or something has something that like adds to the crit rating of something. So like a sniper's can do that. But like, so it's really nice. So like there's some leeway. You can get dropped in combat, or you could even have like 6 critical injuries on you and then you die, but you still like roll a 1. So it's like, I still didn't die. And like, and then when you do, like, you know, it's kind of like your fault. Like you're just like, I shouldn't, I had 4 critical injuries, and like I ran out into the middle of a battlefield and got shot a billion times. Like, then there's like multiple crits for like how you die. Like 140 actually isn't fully dying. It's like you're bleeding out.
Sure. Yeah.
And so like it's almost death. And then like 150 is like your last legs. I think it even like the crit even heals you, but it's like at the end of this encounter you're dead. But you're just like you're hanging on.
That's fucking
to do
cool.
one more thing.
Yeah.
And then like 160 and up, that's insta dead. Whatever just hit you has turned you into red mist.
That shit's super cool, man. That's one of my favorite like critical hit systems in any RPG system. It's got like a few problems I have with it that maybe you could tweak, but it's that perfect level of like, well, from this point onwards, I have like a 10% chance of dying. And then like 3 turns later, you're like, okay, so if I get hit again, it's like a 30% chance of death. You know what I mean?
And also like critical injuries, they're really fun. I really like them. Some of them, they only like last for the encounter. So like getting them, they're just a critical injury and they're just sort of like nondescriptly on you. Yeah. Some of them are like you have a concussion. So like you just don't think too good. Like all of your mental things you have disadvantage on or whatever. And then like some of them are like you lose an arm.
Yeah, man.
Because, and then I took that, I actually, and when I did my Cypher campaign, I put a critical injury thing in there as well.
Okay, cool.
It kind of works with the Cypher thing. Over the course of my campaigns, so many players have lost arms. So many limbs I have accrued.
Oh man, that's incredible. Well, that's great when you can do it mechanically. I did that, but it was kind of cheesy. We should talk about LARPing at some point, just because I want to talk about LARPing.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, we've probably talked about it enough off air that all this shit's already done. Actually, maybe not, because I don't know what genuine questions I have about it. Yeah, we should talk about your band for sure, right? The Stubby Shillelaghs.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, eventually. Dude, okay, I'm going to give you the same compliment that somebody gave me when we started Crows, you know, like 40 people listened to us in our first week, and I like told one of my coworkers about it I talked to all the time, and he came in and he was like, you know what? That was a lot better than I expected. And there's 2 ways to take that. The way that I don't want you to take it is like, oh, well, you know, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. But in a way of like, oh, shit, like, because it's different with musicians. Yeah. I know this is a scatterbrain thought, but it's different with musicians because like I've known you write for like a year or some shit. And like I talked to you a bunch and then I listened to you sing and I'm like, oh, fuck, I didn't know you could actually sing or like you could play the violin. That's fucking, How long have you been playing the violin?
Oh my God, I'm 30. I just turned 30.
I'll be there soon, buddy. It's okay. I get it.
26 years.
Holy shit.
I've been playing my violin for 26 years.
What's the difference between a violin and a fiddle? What's the difference?
It's literally just genre of music.
What the fuck? How does that make any sense?
Well, so this is information that I got off of kind of investedly reading a plaque at a museum in 2009. So if I'm wrong, oh well. But I mean, once also like, no offense to your show, this is like this isn't the most prestigious thing in the world. Anyway, so from what I know, when I went to the one museum in New York, I can't remember which one, but they actually had a thing. So
the New York Museum.
Well, one of them. There was actually like a spot for music, and I was going through, and I noticed modern day right now, fiddle is literally just like the genre of music you're playing. If there's one instrument, it's a violin or a fiddle, and it's a fiddle if you're playing like bluegrass and country, and then like it's a violin if you're playing classical.
What the fuck?
And sort of where I think it comes from is the fact that like, so the violin was created by like Europe mostly, and like it was just like this European instrument, and like I think it was China, but like China, like way back when the violin was invented, they also had their own violin, but it was this 2-string instrument. It had this 2-string, and the bow was like woven in between the strings.
How many strings does violin have?
4.
Okay.
And like it was this 2-string instrument. It's very different from a European violin. They saw the European violin, the 4 strings, and they're like, oh, that's so cool. We want that. But we want people to think that we made it and not them, that we're not just ripping them off.
Whoa.
So they made like this sort of square looking thing, and they called it a fiddle. But for all intents and purposes, it had 4 strings. It functioned just like a violin, and then eventually just turned into a violin. They stopped trying to do their own spin on it.
I know it's also another weird segue, but for a long time, I thought that for all intents and purposes was for all intensive purposes. Did you feel that same way, or are you?
No, I think I always knew it was that. But I mean, like we all have our version of that, right? Like irregardless, and
I probably still say that shit wrong. Okay, but we got off track. Okay, you play the violin, you play in the stubby shillelaghs, and your music is fucking pretty good, man.
Thank you so much,
pretty
man.
Good.
Yeah.
Your one album that is probably the most relevant to this audience right now is Critical Fail.
Yes. Yeah. That is our nerd album.
It's fucking good Irish folk music that's super nerdy. You guys got some goofy skits in there that are good.
Yeah, we always try and throw goofy skits in there. Like it's something that the Stubbies even did before I joined back in 2013.
Is that every album or is that just that album?
Yeah. Well, I maybe their first one, maybe Stubbies Assemble doesn't have to. It's been a while since I've listened to like their first ones. It's weird for me to listen to Stubbies albums that I'm not on. I know that sounds like super conceited. I'm like, but also it's just kind of weird because I'm like, I play that songs all the time, and that's very much not me. It's instead their old fiddle player Jackie.
And then you have a new album coming out,
Yes.
like that should be dropped by the time this episode posts.
Yes, coming out on October 31st. It is called Glass to Mouth.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's good.
Exactly what it sounds like.
You guys got some music videos up on your YouTube channel, Stubby Shillelaghs?
Yeah, Stubby Shillelaghs. We have 3 music videos all from we have a lot of music videos, but from this new album, we have 3 brand new music videos. One for the silly pirate song, Sails and Sorrows, one for the title track, the drinking anthem, Glass to Mouth, and then one for a rebel song that's very poignant to current events called Rebel Heart.
Beautiful. Can I ask you like some technical questions? Is that cool?
Of course.
It sounds super professional and kind of indistinguishable from like the shit I listen to on Spotify, right?
Yay.
So how is that accomplished as someone that is like me in the working class? You know what I mean?
Very carefully. So the band started on their own-ish, right? Like their first album, Stubbies Assemble, that one was done literally like in someone's basement with just like a mic, and like instead of we didn't have levels when recording, they just stood different distances away from the mic. And then I joined the band. We actually recorded an album the year I joined the band that was Celtic American. It's a great album. Actually, though, we kickstarted almost all of our albums, but that one specifically was professionally done. We went down to a place called the Decibel Garden in Denver, and if you are looking for a place to record, that place is amazing. The Decibel Garden in Denver, they are amazing. And we did they did both Critical Fail and Celtic American. So that's how we did the not we. So that's why the editing on that's so good. But Shaughnessy is going to be so happy to hear you say good things about the editing, because I mean, like there is an effort from all of us to make this album sound as good as it does, but we did do this all on our own. We have set up a recording booth in the basement of our bass player's house.
That is literally fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, we've soundproofed everything. We created an isolation booth out of nailing curtains to the ceiling. It's awesome.
Soon to be done in this room that you're sitting in, Eric.
And then and then Shaughnessy has just put hours and hours into editing the songs and making sure they all sound so good. He put so much work into this album. That was one thing we were all kind of daunting. It wasn't all Shaughnessy. Andy also edited a couple, and I think Ryan did one. I think for the most part, though, Ryan, for his editing work, Ryan did all of our album called MASH, which was a live show we did in LA.
Does he have a background in like audio engineering or anything? Or is he just
sort of. He was really into film, so he went to CU Boulder and got a degree, but like for like filming and directing and stuff. But like when he got his job at Comcast, he is not working there anymore. But when he
Fuck you, Comcast.
Yeah, pretty much. Like they treated him like garbage, and they treat just like they treat all of America like garbage.
Yeah, fuck you, Comcast. And you piece of shit. Stop making my internet go out at midnight, you bastards.
Right. But like while he was there, he just did everything. He's like, he knows video editing, he knows sound editing, and what he doesn't know, he learns very fast, because it's just who he is. And he put so many hours into making this sound as awesome as it does.
Is he like an Irish American? Is he
more Scottish?
Why are you guys doing like an Irish folk sort of thing?
I mean, like it's Celtic, which is sort of like Irish.
I apologize.
I mean, like I'm not the best person to ask, like he is, because that's really his background.
You just play the fiddle, man.
Yeah, I mean, like as much as we all love the music and we love the culture it comes from, 3/4 of the band, like Andy and I, are just these two huge dramatic Norwegian dudes, and then Ryan is just like, he is just like thin as a twig, obviously not Irish or Scottish. luckily we have Shaughnessy, who not only is like that is his culture, but he knows so much about it, and he's always able to teach us and help us.
He's like a history teacher, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's a history teacher.
He also does on the Stubby Shillelagh's YouTube channel like little history lessons. Is a bad
he does little
word.
history lessons.
Yeah.
That's so his jam. And also was like a huge influence. He's the one who wrote the 3 songs in the new album we call the Soberman trilogy. It's this 3-song epic that is like the story of this ancient foe called the Sobermen, and they want to destroy all whiskey in the world. Then they've gone, and in the second song it's the all is lost moment because they've destroyed all the whiskey distilleries in the Highlands. And then the final one is the final battle, as they have come to the brewery at St. James Gate, and we must defend it.
It's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little funny, right? Your music in general.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We've always had a very comedic tone.
It's hard to do anything without irony if you're under 30. You know what I mean?
It just sort of comes with the with the age and the world we're living in. But
Yeah. Moving on.
They got their start, and then also like I got the same start. They're a little older than me, but they got their start in 2010, and over in Greeley, they just started playing weekly shows at Patrick's Irish Pub, and from there it grew. They got a manager. Our manager, his name's Glenn. He is awesome, and we just started playing, like, instead of just weekly shows at one pub, we also started playing shows in Denver and Colorado Springs, and we started doing music festivals. And then I joined in 2013, and we started recording albums, and it just grew and grew.
Hell yeah, man.
Comedy was just sort of always there because, like, even before we started writing our own original songs, we're just a bunch of fools playing music and getting drunk. So, like, might as well.
The best kind of band.
Yeah, exactly. So the first song they wrote together as a band is called Top of the Morning Wood.
Good job. Yeah, good job. Good job, past Stubby Shillelagh's.
Oh,
beautiful.
Yeah.
What's a shillelagh?
It is a walking stick.
So it's not just a cantrip from D&D?
No, well, I mean, like, the cantrip just makes a really big walking stick. Because, like, so, like, it's really known for it has a large knotted head. So, like, it can also be used as a weapon.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost like it's like a walking staff that's
it's
like
a club used for walking.
Yep. Yeah. So that's why the spell shillelagh makes a giant club that can, like, smash through the heavens.
What is the worst thing about being in a band? Because obviously you love it and shit, you know, but I've never been a part of any musical industry.
The worst part about being in a band? That's a hard question to ask. Like, I mean, like, obviously there's things that are rough, right? Like, but like, for the most part, like, normally things that, like, ever get me down, like, at any given moment, I wouldn't consider a bad part of being in the band, right? Like, you're like, oh, if we do a lot of live shows, and that's a lot of lugging around my own stuff, but whatever. Like, I need the workout. Like, it's whatever.
That's man. Like, I helped with like a student film one time. This dude was trying to do a feature-length film, which surprise did not materialize. But
didn't? Oh no.
Yeah, I know. But there's something cool about being in the trenches. There's something cool about, like, the physical effort required to make a creative project. You know.
And then like, the only other thing I can think of is that, like, sometimes just because of just like how close you get to everyone in the band, like, you know, sometimes things can just be taken like a little too personally, and drama that comes, if drama does ever surface in the band, it's like the heavy, hard, like, family, like, level drama that, like, just really stresses you out. Damn. But then, like, I mean, but, like, that's less of, like, a bad thing about being in a band, and more just, like, actually it's like a positive thing, because that just means, like, the only reason I'm getting that upset or that stressed out about the drama is just because, and the only reason the drama exists in the first place is because I have 4 people in my life that are as close to me as family that I didn't have without being in the band. And actually, like, that's one of the things is that, like, I love about being in the band is, like, my bandmates they're my family. They're awesome. And, like, there was a point, the Stubby Shillelaghs actually retired for, like, half a year.
Oh, shit. Okay.
It was 2015, 2016. And, like, we were just, because, like, we did this huge push. We're going to be like, someone's going to notice us, and a label's going to sign us, and everything's going to be awesome if we just put in the work. And we put in so much work. There was, like, this one September when, like, we did, like, 4 shows a week. We were
on top of, like, full-time jobs and shit.
Yeah, well, part-time jobs, because we weren't making money. So, like, but, like, that was one of the problems is that, like, we couldn't get full-time jobs. Because whenever you would go to a job and just be like, I would really like this job. And, like, they're like, wow, you're really qualified. Sweet. Like, when are you available? Oh, I can't do weekends because I have shows. I can't do Tuesday nights. I shouldn't do Wednesday mornings. I can't do this day. And then also, if anything comes up, I'm just going to request it off because I can do anything. And, like, people, of course, they're not going to hire you or do anything. So like we were running ourselves ragged with the band, not getting the amount of money that we should have been getting for how much work we did and quality we brought to things. And so we were like, guys, I think it's time to hang up the towel. So we did for about half a year. And that didn't last very long, because then the lead singer's wife was like, for my birthday, I want a stubby show. We're like, what, like a private one? She's like, maybe. Like, but I want it at the Moxie, which is a venue over in downtown Greeley. Okay. Shout out to the Moxie and Eli, all wonderful places. And then we were like, oh, well, if we're doing it at the Moxie, like, it's like, yeah, she's like, oh, I'm going to invite people. And then it's like, and then Eli's like, can we advertise this? And we asked her, and she's like, hell yeah, like, I want it to be a party. Like, let's bring some people. So it just turned into a show. And like, while prepping for the show, we were practicing. We all just like looked at each other and we were like, we don't want to quit the band. We did stop doing like a lot of live shows. We stopped doing pub shows. We just started doing like pretty much once every few months. We'd do like a ticketed show, and then we'd do music festivals in the summer. Has your perception of local music changed since you like started in a band? Oh, 100%. Like I didn't even like think about local music, except for like I told you before recording, before I was in the Stubby Shillelaghs, I was a professional fiddler. I would do a competition fiddler, I should say. There's a group called Fiddling Along the Rockies, and they do like fun little fiddle competitions through Wyoming and Colorado. There's a lot, and I was able to bounce between them. Is that like everybody playing the same music and getting judged on it? Sort of. It's you have to play the same types of music. So like usually for the fiddle category, there's lots of different categories, but for the fiddle one, you need a backup guitarist, and you need 3 songs that you're going to play in a row. You need a hoedown, a slow song, and then like a jig. What's a jig? It's just another fast song. There's a technical thing for a jig, but like in the jig category, you could really just play anything that wasn't another hoedown. Okay, we're just gonna move on. Yeah, that's There's too much to unpack there. Sorry, I interrupted you. No, you're fine. You're talking about how local music perception has changed. Oh yeah. And so like I knew about like local people who were musicians, like who did play music through that, but like I never really thought about bands, and I never really thought about that. And then I joined the Stubby Shillelaghs, and like I think a lot of it was just because of like what Greeley had to offer, which was really nice. Another part of it was just the band. Both Andy, the lead singer, and Ryan were in another band at the time called Frosthane. Okay. And then also they're just friends with a lot of local musicians, which were awesome. But then on top of it, in Greeley, there was a warehouse that someone had renovated and changed into a series of practice areas. So if you paid them rent, and the rent wasn't like super expensive, you got a room in this warehouse and play and practice music. That's incredible. And so yeah, this warehouse was just a bunch of local Greeley musicians. Yeah. And it was awesome. And like everyone there was super nice. I'm still friends with like a lot of them. That's a good business model, and something that's fucking probably necessary for you as a band, right? You can't definitely record in somebody's garage without getting complaints, right? Yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't want to record at the warehouse because like you can hear people. Just practice. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. No, you're good. No, it was like, yeah, it was perfect. And like for the most part, everyone who was there was really nice and really awesome. There was one band I'd never met, but we got to the warehouse one day, and like sitting out in the middle of the parking lot was the cindered remains of a massive couch. And at first we were just like laughing because we were like, someone took a couch out here and lit it on fire, because the parking lot was huge and it was all gravel, so like they weren't going to light anything on fire. But then as we started going up, we noticed drag marks, and ashen drag marks that led not only up to the stairs of the warehouse, but into the warehouse, up the stairs inside of the warehouse to the second story like lounge area. These idiots didn't start the fire outside in the parking lot where it was safe. They started in the building where everyone keeps their expensive music stuff. And then it was... Holy shit. This place was really old. It did have functioning fire extinguishers, but it also had a bunch of old ones that they hadn't cleared out yet. So like there was a very clear story that you could just see. They had obviously gotten drunk, thought it was funny, lit the couch on fire, and then they were like, oh, it's starting to get a little crazy. And then they went and grabbed a really old fire extinguisher from this place. Nothing. And they were like, uh-oh. And started frantically grabbing them. Nothing. And they're like, oh. And they used quilts and pillows to beat it, and that didn't work, and the fire's going crazy. So they literally just lifted the thing, dragged an on-fire couch out through. Holy shit. Down the stairs and dropped it off. And like, luckily the culprits were found, and they were banned from the place, which was good. But like, yeah, we met a lot of local artists there. And just being the band, you get to know other local artists. Like, we're really good friends with a band called called Bolognium. They're actually featured in one of our new songs, Sales and Sorrow, the pirate song.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he's playing the accordion. Bolognium is a hilarious band. They're pretty much if Devo met Weird Al. The lead singer plays an accordion, and all their songs are like really wacky and really like... They're a trip, man.
Dude, on Critical Fail, the last song or near the last song, like, what's it called? Gotham City? Or
Gotham's Finest, yeah.
Gotham's Finest. Who is the person that played Catwoman? Because she fucking killed it.
Oh, yeah. In the music video?
I think she was on the album, too. She had like a verse.
So the singer and the actress were not the same person.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, the singer then. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine.
I listened to the whole album in order, and I was just blown away by, like, because she didn't appear before that, at least not to my knowledge.
No, she didn't. She's never really recorded with us except for that. That song is actually originally on what's it called, Celtic American, and then we just re-put it on that one because it was a nerd song.
Very much so, yeah.
So she sang on that one, and then she also sang backups on our. We did a cover of a metal song called "Question of Heaven," which is a metal song about Spawn. So her name is Megan Elizabeth or Megan T. That's what she went by, like as a musical label. She was a local Greeley artist.
Oh shit!
And she would play live with us a lot.
Cool.
And like she would just play live with us back when we did like weekly shows in Greeley, because she played in Greeley as well. And then there was a small stint where we were like, oh my gosh, be the fifth Stubby. And she was like, yeah. And she was the fifth Stubby for a while. We played shows all together. And then it just wasn't a fit. And she was like, nope. And
that's fair.
We parted ways.
Well, she killed it. That whole album was beautiful.
Yeah.
Which character did you play? Do you remember?
I was Batman.
Yeah, you're Batman.
So actually,
right.
Gotham's Finest is the first song I ever wrote.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I love Batman.
It's very good. I got, I won't spoil it for anybody, but I got a very good laugh at like the end of between the first verse and the first chorus, and like that repeating.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You guys have like pretty good impressions altogether between all of you. Somebody did a Darth Vader one. Somebody did a Bane one. Somebody did a whole Simpsons song.
Yeah. Okay, wait.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on the Simpsons reggae song?
I thought it was a very good stab at reggae.
Thank
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think for what you guys normally do, it's pretty crazy that you accomplished that good of a song. That being said, I'm not a huge fan of The Simpsons. I've watched like the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I've watched all of Futurama twice, but I have not watched much of The
Futurama's
Simpsons.
great. Yeah, we should have done a Futurama song, but we didn't.
Yeah. I thought you were about to say we should have done a Futurama episode. Like we should have just talked for Futurama about 2 hours, which we probably could have pulled off.
Oh, I could talk about Futurama for 2 hours.
But how we got on this, impressions, yeah? Like, are all of you as big of a nerds as the album Critical Fail would suggest, or
yes.
is that... Oh, okay.
In our own, like, we're all nerds about different things.
What's the Whovian song?
A Reluctant Whovian.
Reluctant Whovian. Incredible. That's like anybody that's ever watched Doctor Who can sympathize with that song.
And that one was written by Shaughnessy, because like he's the one who feels strongest about that. Like I like Doctor Who a lot more than Shaughnessy does, but like I definitely understand where he's coming from, and I really like that song.
So did he write all the things about what he hated about Doctor Who, and you wrote all the things that you loved about
that song is like pure stream of consciousness from him. Like he is he's just so conflicted on the show, because like he's like, oh, I love this, but I hate this.
Yeah, that's fair. The problem with Doctor Who is like it's so big of a construct that you kind of have to define what you enjoy about it,
I guess.
But like there's classic Doctor Who and there's new Doctor Who, and then it's like, oh, do you like Davies Doctor Who? Do you like Moffat? Or do you like the new stuff? Or do you like the Sky by the dude that did Broadchurch and shit?
I mean, like, for the most part, I can say, like...
There's so many creative voices in it.
One of the things I love about Doctor Who, and, like, what I could say objectively, Doctor Who is imaginative.
Yeah.
Like, and it is...
It's legitimately sci-fi.
Yes, it's very fantastical sci-fi, like, very...
Yeah,
less explainy stuff, but, like... That's still a genre of sci-fi, and like it's just so like welcoming and just whimsical and fun, and in a genre that tends to really lend itself either to the very too cold and too calculating to way too edgelordy.
Yeah,
like just having whimsical, corny fun was very welcoming.
It's a very feel-good show. Yeah. That's like the thing that I go watch when I like feel super shitty and I just want to feel good again.
Yeah,
I've watched Blink about 10 times legitimately.
Great episode.
Man, people that haven't watched Doctor Who, you should just go watch Blink, which I think is like season 4 episode 9 or something.
Yeah. Blink is like a standalone thing. Like you can just watch that. That's just like,
it's a 45-minute horror movie.
Yeah, it's just solid entertainment. Like whether you like Doctor Who or not, you'll probably like Blink. Like,
you're right that it's not true sci-fi. Did you watch well, you didn't say that, you said it was sci-fi, but like, have you watched Arrival?
Oh yes, of course. Arrival, that's the one with the teacher and she's learning the language.
Yes,
I love Arrival. My gosh,
that was like some of the truest sci-fi we've got in cinema recently.
I would actually 100% agree, because what really makes sci-fi for me, it not only has to really deal with obviously future and future tech and very like in space, but like it also has themes of like politics and the human mind, and and it also has to have some sort of like theme that stretches out.
See, to me, that's what it is. To me, sci-fi is about, here's one interesting idea and let's dive into that as far as we can. It's so slow and the setup is so great, and it doesn't hold its whole story based on action and shit.
Every aspect of the movie while you're in it, and the movie's like constantly changing about like what it's about and what the stakes are, but every moment is compelling. And also, you don't need what turns off a lot of people from sci-fi is, right, like you sometimes feel like you need like a physics degree to understand what they're talking about.
Totally.
Like I love The Expanse, but like sometimes when I'm watching The Expanse, I'm like, okay, yeah. But like, I think anyone can watch Arrival and just like relate with the character, relate with the emotional through lines of like everything that's going on. Because like you're learning about these aliens while the main character is. Right. And like they're very so solid. Well done. Everything is just like, it takes you on the journey. And then by the end, whether you understand the concept of how crazy the end of Arrival gets, whether you understand it or not, it's entertaining.
Absolutely. And I really struggle to think of any movies recently that have come out that are like sci-fi in that same way.
Annihilation gets pretty close.
Did you like Annihilation? Because
I liked all of it except for I didn't like the ending. I didn't like.
Yeah, dude.
As really soon as she entered, what was that? A lighthouse? As soon as she entered where the comet crashed. Yeah. They showed the monster. I mean, like,
right? Yes. Yes.
So much of the movie was just the mystery. So much of it of like I'm just thinking of like these are such cool concepts. Like what turn like that bear thing that can mimic your voice. Like, what is this thing's like motives? But then like it's just sort of like, this monster, it makes it look like you, and it's I'm here.
Fucking bullshit, man. The only thing I liked about that was the visuals of her once she went into that hole at the end of the movie. Yeah, that was compelling, but everything else was.
I still think like the ending is not the reason to watch that movie. Like the journey to there is so compelling. It's so good. Natalie Portman, of course, does a great job.
Did you like V for Vendetta?
Yes.
Yeah, I really did too. For a long time, I watched V for Vendetta on November 5th. I like Natalie Portman.
I recently watched a video that explained and like took apart why both V for Vendetta and the Watchmen movie, which I also like.
Me too.
But like, why not only are they terrible renditions of what they copied, but why in the form that they hypocritically approach the story they're telling. Watchmen more so than V for Vendetta. And like watching that, I couldn't say no. I was just like, oh man, yeah, you're like super right. But I kind of want to watch both those movies now.
You know, I remember going into the midnight showing of Watchmen, rereading the graphic novel in line. We got there like 2 hours early. And you can say whatever you want about the movie, but Zack Snyder obviously loved that comic book. Yes. If you put some of the frames side by side with panels from the comics, it's fucking dead on.
Yeah, no, that movie is beautiful.
Yeah. There's nothing you can... Any adaptation to a film is going to struggle from adapting something to 2.5 hours, and like everything sort of deserves a mini series, if nothing else, on HBO.
Have you seen the Watchmen miniseries?
Fuck no, I have not.
Oh my gosh, no, seriously. Like, not only like at first I was really mad because I love the ending, because like the ending of the original Watchmen is basically like a Schrodinger's box, because of the way everything sets up both futures of whether everything continues as this dystopia utopia or whether everything descends into chaos and anarchy because of what happens at the end of like it's like both existences exist. Sure. And by making a sequel to it, at first I was just like, you open the box, it's a dead cat, and like, yeah, like you can make that dead cat really appealing, but like and they really did make that dead cat appealing. What the Watchmen series is awesome is like this came out like last year too. and like I'm so happy Hulu made it free for a little bit.
Okay, shit.
During the height of like the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
And everything. I mean, it's still going on, right? But like its messages that it has on police brutality and racial relations in the U.S.
Yeah.
Very prevalent, very interesting voice on the subject. And like also, whereas the movie, the Zack Snyder movie, flies in the face of the themes, political and otherwise, that the book set up, this very much, I feel, is in the same. These are a lot of the themes that the book had going.
That's very cool.
Because like that was a very, in the thing I watched, I thought was very interesting, because like I did actually really like the Watchmen movie. It was a lot of fun to watch. It's very beautiful, as we agreed. But like one thing that they had sort of said was that like it glorifies things that were literally not, like, that Moore went out of his way.
It's like Starship Troopers,
yes.
where it's purposely going, he gets so caught up in making a cool movie.
Watchmen the book is Stormtrooper Troopers. It's supposed to be satirizing comic books and be like,
sure,
this is gross. You don't. Rorschach is a gross person.
Yeah,
don't like him.
Right.
This fight in the theater, them having sex because they're getting like they're really happy that they just beat up a bunch of people in prison. Like that's not a good thing.
Right.
And the movie's just like, oh my gosh, this fight in the prison, isn't it awesome?
Well, Zack Snyder has a problem where he doesn't know how to make anything uncool. His only job is to like make everything cool.
And he loves the dark undertones and the dark story, like, and he did it really well. Like that's why I like the movie still.
Rorschach is a pretty good representation of the movies, I think.
No,
you don't think?
I think they make him too cool in the movies. Yeah. He is too cool, and like both the actor and Zack Snyder did such a good job. I watched that movie, and when he's like, "I'm not stuck in here with you, you're stuck in here with me," and I'm like, "Yeah," but then like I super agree. Like in the book, when he says that and when everything he does, you're not supposed to be on Rorschach's side. You're supposed to be like, you are a disgusting, gross human being, and like you're terrible. Like you're taking of right and wrong into your own hands, because like everyone doing it is kind of wrong in the book, right? Like they're just taking way too much power. They're killing people. They're torturing people.
Yeah.
What Ozymandias does, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like it's abuse of power, but like it's very specifically from Rorschach, as he just like, I'm gonna walk into a bar and break your fingers, and like you're supposed to be like, ugh, but the movie does a really good job of making you be like, yeah, beat him up,
yeah, maybe that's an accomplishment in and of itself.
It is. It is. Like that actor, I'm so sad, because like he did that, and then he went and he did Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare remake.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And like
poor guy.
Yeah. That movie was not his fault, and like I miss him so much, because like he was such a good Rorschach, and like, well, he was such a good movie Rorschach. He was so cool. I want like
can we talk about the Dresden Files?
Oh hell yeah.
Okay, so I've only Okay, I've read a lot this year. By read a lot this year, I mean I've listened to a lot of audiobooks.
Oh yeah,
okay?
no, that's what I do.
That's what you have to do. I mean, for a long time, I really thought that, I don't know, like our mutual friend Renee, right? Like her whole thing was, if you hate a book, just stop reading it. And that is such a mind-altering state. So since I stopped doing that, I've gotten through 12 audiobooks this year, and I listened to the first Dresden Files, Stormfront, in 2 days, and that was very recently. Have you read all of them? Or
yeah, I'm fully caught up.
Okay. Everybody keeps telling me that the first book was his worst, and I understand, there's certain misogynistic elements in it, certainly. But as a story, fucking so solid, so tight. Everything just keeps moving, and it's not unbelievable.
Oh, definitely.
It should be unbelievable how much is happening in such a short period of time. But goddamn, he just kills it, man.
Yes.
I've been so impressed.
Really, like that statement is just purely out of necessity, because like it only just keeps getting better, right? Like from Stormfront, it just keeps getting better, and it never dips back down. That's why like you kind of always have to be like, Stormfront is the worst, but I mean like it's really just, Stormfront's a great book, and there's nowhere to go but up, which is awesome.
That's crazy to me. I think spoilers to avoid spoilers for the first book in the Dresden Files series, go to 1 hour, 8 minutes. But if we can talk spoilers for a second, the only thing that was vaguely cheesy to me was like the recurrence of the scorpions. I don't know how much you remember this book, but he like fought the scorpion earlier on to set it up. You know, it's like a talisman he got, and then the bad guy at the end of the book brought it back with a bunch of magical scorpions that were attacking him. Yeah. And that's the only thing that felt vaguely out of place to me. But I didn't even think that felt out of place. It was great.
Yeah.
I really liked the story with his mom. Came in so late in that book, like 50% of the way through. They just gave you Dresden, and then eventually gave you this shit after you already empathized with him as a character.
Yeah.
And then they brought it around like in the climax of the book of like, okay, I'm doing this for my mother, kind of, bringing it back around. I thought that was cool to not get front loaded with all that background information and still have him make me care about the character.
Oh yeah, like and the way he sort of like over the course of the books, and he just sort of gives you piecemeal Dresden's backstory, I think is really, really well done, because like it's the adage, right? Actions speak louder than words. You know who Dresden is because you see him putting in the work. He does things himself, and it's awesome. And so like then 99% of the time when then he takes a little time to give you like either a flashback or just Dresden just straight up telling you like, this happened in my past. That was a terrible James Marsters, I'm sorry. You're amazing, and so
I love
much
you, Spike.
Yeah, you're so much of the reason why I listen to the books. You're amazing.
Do they start to cut out his goddamn mouth noises in future books?
Yeah.
Okay.
The editing is going to get a lot better.
Okay,
well,
cool.
like I said, you're going to get to audiobook 3, Grave Peril, and it's literally going to open with, he's like, yeah, I was just sort of writing these books for fun, and apparently everyone loves Grave Peril, so enjoy. And then like it's just like a huge spike in quality, both for recording and also for writing.
That's cool. But it's James Marsters the whole way through?
Oh yeah, it's still James Marsters.
Okay, thank God. Keep going.
I don't even remember what was talking about.
That's okay. Another thing I really liked about the book is Murphy, the detective.
Yes.
Such a good character.
Yes.
Essential to the plot of the first book. Conflict of the first book in a lot of ways. Really well written woman.
Yep.
And for such a, like Dresden is sort of a purposefully misogynistic character in the first book. I assume to sort of like really solidify like the wizardry aspect, like the tradition of wizard, I think, which the world building aspect of wizards negatively affecting technology is such a cool idea that really pays off in a lot of good ways.
Oh yeah, there is one thing I'll say, because like you'll notice it, and like it's even there in the first book. I mean, this is probably like less of like a plot hole, oh my gosh I found, but like more of just like, this is definitely something I think about. Dresden, he loves pop culture so much. He makes movie references and song references, and they're always very up to date, but technology screws up around him like all the time. Like even if he's just in the same room, he does mention a couple times like he's like, oh yeah, I'll go to the drive-thru and I'll be like far back enough that it's not affecting anything. But he is more well versed in pop culture references than I am, and I'm nuts. Like, and I don't have to worry about screwing up my computer. I just watch everything, and like we're missing so much of him. Just he's like plotting out his day. He's like, okay, cool. I need to listen. I need to like, I really want to listen to this new music or these 90s tunes, but I can't do it because like I'll screw up the thing, so I need my neighbor to play it, and then I'm going to watch the movie from across the street.
Yeah. That's interesting, dude, because the first book, I don't even fucking remember any pop culture references. I mean,
there's got to be some.
He's got to make some for sure.
Probably has like Spider-Man underwear or something.
Yes.
He definitely mentions his love for Coca-Cola. Like, Jim, are you getting paid? Like, it's mentioned so much and so frequently, and it's always just in the most. He'll be like, I'm trying to say things without like spoiling them. He's like, I finally got back after being chased by a week straight by zombies. I'm exhausted. I need a shower. But when I crack open that Coca-Cola, instantly refreshed.
Okay, that is the number one thing in which I identify with Dresden, because for sure my biggest vice besides, the Colorado herb is, of course, Dr. Pepper. Yeah. And I feel like you don't get a lot of representation. This is such a white dude saying a thing. You don't get a lot of representation of like soda addicts in media, So it was pretty cool to see somebody that was like not coming home and drinking a beer, and so it's just like,
I mean, he also does soda. That, right? He's all, like,
sure, yeah.
In every book, eventually you're gonna, because like there's like 17 books now, 18 books. In every single one, it'll always just be like, technology screws up around me. I love a cold Coca-Cola. Mac makes beer. He wants me to drink it at room temperature, but I drink him cold. And you're just like, oh my god, I get it. Yes, I know.
Well, James Marston fucking pulls it off.
Man. Oh, he does. Yeah, no, he can say anything, and I'd just be super invested.
Well, when I get back to Dresden, we'll talk more about Dresden off air. I'm reading this book called How to Make Nuclear Weapons, or like the making of it. Yeah. I've been alternating between fiction and nonfiction because it's a lot easier to get through nonfiction in audiobook, as it turns out. So to all you podcast listeners out there, maybe just start listening to audiobooks because it's been life-changing for me. It's been super cool.
I'll always latch onto a nonfiction book like out of nowhere. One of my favorite nonfiction books is Freakonomics. That's such a fun book. I just stumbled across that book. It was required reading for a class, and I was like, oh. And I'm like, this book is awesome. It's so much fun. But like for the most part, though, I'm usually just like, I'm going to stick to zombies.
I've heard that name a million times, but I've never done any research into it. Is it just like a primer on economics, or is it a...
Yeah, so it's a book about economics, but in a way, more of a way that like people can relate to. So what they do is they take these sort of famous examples, major things that have happened in the world. They sort of explain like how the world responded to them and how the world explains them, and then they go into looking at how economics works.
Cool.
What actually happened in the frame of economics, and then they equate that to another more obscure reference that you probably don't know about. So like one example is they look at the corruption and utter strange control that the sumo fighting ring has over Japan's government. And
what the fuck? Okay.
And how corrupt sumo fighting used to be. And then they do they equate that to this small like teachers strike in... I'll have to read the book again, but like those are like sumo wrestlers and like a teacher's problems, and they're like, well, how are those connected? So you read the chapter and you're like, that is so like historically interesting. That's really fascinating to think about, like why, like how corruption and like these conspiracies and like how things can build like that. It's just such an interesting book that like deals with economics.
Okay, cool, man. Yeah, I don't know anything about economics, so maybe one day, or maybe
Freakonomics is the perfect book to start.
Freakonomics. That's what we're here to plug. Freakonomics. Okay, well, I mean, thanks for coming on, Eric.
Of course, man.
Yeah, where do we find all your shit?
All right, yeah. So Stubby Shillelagh's new album, Glass to Mouth.
Boom, boom, boom.
You can find it on Spotify, CD Baby, iTunes, Amazon, pretty much anywhere there's music. Look up the Stubby Shillelagh's.
There'll be a couple links in the show notes.
And also, there's like if you just want to listen to our music free or watch the videos, it's all on YouTube. You can just watch that. Just enjoy the video.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thanks for coming on. This was fun, man.
Yeah, thanks for the whiskey and the convo.
Well, don't die, and fucking see you on Monday for Blaze in the Dark, dude.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Okay. All right.
Peace. Is it on purpose that the map you have above the toilet is for white throw?
No. Well, I'll say it is now.